Welcome to Freedom Cast, where your hosts, Jordan and Miranda, show you how to get just a little bit more out of life. Are you ready to leave normal behind?
All right, folks, welcome to Freedom Cast.
We are very happy to have you here today, and we are going to be doing something a little bit different from our normal podcast episode.
Just a little bit different, so hang tight.
We got kind of on a bunny trail as we were about to start recording our episode, and we ended up talking about the NFL protests of the national anthem and how some teams have been kneeling, some teams have been standing with locked arms, other teams have just completely stayed out of it and stuck in the locker rooms.
Yep, and we admit our ignorance with that. We actually had to look up and find what they were even kneeling about because it's not something we've been hearing a lot about. We all know about Colin Kaepernick, and I think that was last year, or I don't even...
Yeah, that wasn't even this year.
Yeah, and now all of a sudden this is popping back up, and we're very interested in figuring out what was the big deal today. Because actually, we didn't even really watch any football today because I didn't find it on early in the afternoon. I couldn't get the other station later on in the afternoon. So I just ended up watching some Office this afternoon. I didn't even watch football.
Well, that's because we have an antenna, so we can... super old school. That's why we couldn't get the station.
See, there you go. That's why we do this show, guys. That's why me and Miranda are perfectly qualified to be the Freedom Cast hosts, because we have bunny ears and we like to go down bunny trails. How about that?
Exactly. So I was confused because I was like, what are they protesting? Why? First off, why are they kneeling? And then we found out that Trump didn't like that they were kneeling. And I was like, well, why doesn't Trump like that they're kneeling? And then we kind of had to reverse engineer it to get like to the base of how it all started.
And I will say, before we even really start talking about this stuff, it's our intention to be positive about this. We always want to come across as positive people on this show. We want to give you a positive message. This is definitely an interesting topic, but it's also a divided and, controversial. Yeah, there's going to be people on different sides, and it's not our intention to get you riled up, but we did want to talk about it because it's something that's real and it's out there.
And we found it very interesting, and we thought, hey, why don't we just talk about this? Because we were already talking about it. We might as well just hit record and go with it. So we definitely want to see what are the positives we can take out of these sort of situations, because the news can be very negative and it can kind of be like, this is just ridiculous. Like, some people are in the camp that like, this is just crazy and such a silly thing. Other people feel very passionately one way or the other. So we just want to see what can we glean from this and how can we learn from this. And, just like Jordan said, we want to always be positive. So we don't want to, we don't want to get people riled up just to get them riled up.
No, and this episode is going to be basically just Miranda and I talking about the issues and, sharing that it's not a bad thing to talk about these things, especially when they pop up. And I admit, again, to being ignorant of these issues. And, there's times where I'm ignorant of things in the news, and that's sometimes by choice. I choose not to watch the news pretty much ever because most of it is negative, and hearing different things. I do agree that I probably should be more, I should at least know about it. So that's what we're trying to share today. That makes sense, Miranda?
Yeah, and I flip-flop. I just recently read the book Unleash Joy, and she was a proponent of, news is not positive, so you should kind of not pay attention to it. But then I feel out of the loop, so I've been trying to just look at my news on my phone and just kind of read the headlines, but not delve too deep, not open it and read and go down that sort of bunny trail of, super negativity, because it can get overwhelming and just feel like there's so much evil in the world and you just feel like, what can I ever do? And it kind of just pushes you down. So I think it's an interesting topic of how involved and how in the know you should be about current events and politics and all that good stuff.
Yeah, and I think anytime you get to a point where you're finding yourself getting angry about this kind of thing, and I admit, just thinking about it tonight, I was getting kind of worked up. So I can see how easy it is for some people to get worked up, but I think it's so important at the end of the day just to remember that none of us know everything. Of course, we don't know the right way a lot of times, and I think it's so important to admit that and then be open to other ideas. You can be steadfast in your beliefs, and I strongly encourage you to be. But at the same time, you don't need to put someone else down for what they believe either.
Exactly. You need to be respectful because everybody is different. Everybody has different beliefs. And chances are, no matter how vehemently you discuss your passions and your feelings about a certain topic, you're probably not going to change the other person's mind.
Wow, Miranda, I love that word. Vehemently. That was awesome. I gave her a thumbs up when she said it. Oh, man.
I was pretty sure I said it right, so I was like, ooh, we'll see.
Oh, that was great.
If you were going to give me a disappointed face, I would have known I said it wrong.
All right, let's talk about the highlight of today. The best thing that came out of this, we think, is the story you've probably heard. The Steelers player that came out on his own. I believe you say it, Alejandro Villanueva. If that's not right, and that guy happens to be listening, that'd be sweet. Give us a call. But you can correct us too, and we'll, I'll even go back in and update and change this episode. So, no, I'm just kidding. Obviously, he won't be listening to this show, but it'd be sweet if he was.
Yeah. So the rest of the Steelers, all stayed in the locker room because they didn't want to make a political statement either way with kneeling or standing with locked arms. So
yeah, the coach said that they were there to play. Mike Tomlin said they were there to play football and they didn't want to be involved. And, in some ways they were more involved because of what they did, because of their inaction, I guess their decision to not come out. They ended up being the highlight of the news. So there's things there. You can't just not do it and expect to not be involved either. I mean, you're involved one way or the other if you're in the NFL. So.
Yeah, and I guess we should probably start with explaining kind of, it started when certain players were kneeling during the national anthem because racial tensions, and that became a thing that Donald Trump picked up on, and he tweeted out that he thinks that if you're kneeling during the national anthem, that's un-American and you should be fired. And then after he tweeted that out, that kind of set the NFL into like a flurry. And so a bunch of teams decided they would all kneel. Some decided just to stand and link arms. And like the Steelers, they decided just to stay in the locker room and not make, a statement either way, but in that making a statement. So.
And I will add in there, I'm not going to say what I really feel either way, but, when you're trying to bully someone to follow your way, you're going to have more people that protest. And we actually read that the Ravens, I believe, had not protested up until this point, but I think most of the team ended up kneeling today. And as Miranda said, yeah, the Ravens would do that. Come on, Baltimore. Of course they would do that.
They love drama. They're like, oh yeah, we're doing this now.
Yeah. And, and I don't necessarily, I don't know. I kind of respect what they did because they're just sticking up for their teammates. But we won't go too far into that.
Yeah, well, I think there's a bunch of different ways you can look at this. And like we were saying before, I do respect the one Steeler player that came out because
absolutely,
that's really hard to do. I mean, you're in the NFL with a team. Your coach is like Mike Tomlin, and you are the one guy that says, "No, I'm going to go out." Like, I just think that takes like a lot of guts to just be able to pull away from kind of that group think. And especially if you're in a team, you train together, you play together, just being able to say, like, this is what I believe and go off of that and not what all the people around you are doing.
Yeah, and I would liken it to even, that's his family. I know a lot of, I don't know a lot of NFL players, but I know that
we know zero NFL players.
But if you're on a sports team, it's like a family to you. So he was basically stepping out from his family and saying, no, this is what I believe, and I'm going to act on that belief. And I love that story because he was not afraid of what other people think. He was willing to go up and do that. And in the same way, you could compare that to Kaepernick. And I know Colin Kaepernick was the guy that kind of started this whole issue. But when no one else was doing it, he was willing, or he thought very strongly that he should kneel. be one of the first players to kneel during the national anthem. And agree with him or not, it's kind of incredible that he was willing to take that step and actually do that. I know some people call him a crybaby, and you hear these other things. And I mean, come on. I don't think we should be jumping down these guys' throats. I mean, I think there's definitely a reason for what they do that, a lot of times we may not even understand.
Yeah. And I think what you said so good. It's like, either way, no matter how you look at it, whether you think, well, he should have been kneeling, or he should have been doing this, it's just something you can apply to your life. Is there something in your life that you feel really strongly about, but everybody around you is doing something differently? What do? Do you just do what everyone else is doing? Or do you say, no, I'm going to step out on that field and be the only guy wearing that ugly yellow out on the field?
Yep. As we learned from Dead Poets Society, there is so much strength in being a nonconformist and not going with what the crowd is doing. And if you've never seen that movie, it's definitely worth a watch. Because we love that movie. Definitely doesn't relate to the NFL at all, but that movie is all about teaching the kids or the boys in that movie that it's not always the best thing just to go ahead and do what everyone else is doing. And that's what Miranda was just saying. That's what we're talking about on this show is if you're faced with a decision, to do A or B, and everybody else that is doing A, don't think that you have to do it just because everyone else is doing it. There is so much to be said for stepping out on your own, and you very well could be wrong. In a lot of cases, if everyone else is doing it, it may be that they're doing it the right way and you're a little crazy, but there's so much to be gained I think we think here, from stepping outside and just testing yourself in that way. And what a growth opportunity to say, you know what, Mom, you know what, Dad, I don't agree with you. I'm gonna do it this way. I say, Mom and Dad, probably should respect your parents if you're under 18.
Yeah, I'm surprised you jumped to Mom and Dad.
I probably shouldn't. Going back.
What would your mother say?
Oh no, she'd be so upset. Mom, I totally was not thinking of any situation. Promise. I just thought Mom and Dad, because of course you normally would want to believe what your parents believe. I'm not saying you should disobey your parents or anything like that. I'm saying that just because your parents think it or your family thinks it, it might not be the right way to go. Yeah.
And I was even thinking more with your peers, if you're in school or if you're in an office sort of environment. I think it can be so easy, even if it's just you're in a job where there's a very negative environment around you, and it's very easy to fall into that and be like, oh yeah, work's the worst, I can't wait till Friday. But when you're that one person that comes in with a big smile on your face and it's like, hey, like, how's everybody doing?
It's amazing how much impact you can have just by a simple smile. I remember many times where, I had that thought in my head that, hey, I'm not having a great day, but I was like, you know what? I don't care. It's not about me right now. I'm going to smile, and the next person you see kind of looks this, they look how you feel. And then all of a sudden you're smiling and they're looking at you like, wow, that person's happy. I'm going to smile too. And then you just kind of spread it. And it seems silly to talk about just a smile, when we're talking about major issues like this, but it really can make a huge difference, and I don't say that just to throw something else on here. I think that's so important.
Yeah. And we kind of fell off the track there, but I would say definitely what we were saying is a positive you can pull from this is being able to, if there's something you believe, to stick to it, even if it's hard. And then I would also say another positive would be NFL players using their platform to make a statement and to make a stand. Because in America, what's more American than football? How many people watch football every Sunday afternoon? That's just a huge stage for people to see, and to kind of look at and say, well, what are they doing? So I think it's really cool that certain, teams would say like, okay, we're going to do this and we're going to do this together, and kneel or not kneel, link arms, whichever way they're doing it. I think it's cool that they use their, their influence and their pull in a certain way.
Yeah, because I think it's so important that we, as we are viewing this, and especially as Christians, we're viewing it as, they have the right, they have the free will to do that. they have the ability to kneel if they want to. I think it would be absolutely crazy if the NFL was going to issue any fines on them or something, but we don't have to delve into that.
I mean, they get fined for dancing. I mean, that's
I know
pretty
they get
crazy
fined for a lot of crazy things, so this wouldn't be too crazy. But I don't know. What was I saying, Miranda? I lost my train of thought there.
I don't know. I wasn't sure where you were going with that.
Well, I think I was just saying, just the importance of, or just their ability to go and do that is their right. And I think regardless of whether they're right or wrong in what they're protesting, are we not a country that allows people to protest? Isn't that like throughout our history, how many times have we seen so many, monumental changes based on people protesting? And if we're going to tell these people that they can't protest because it's a game, because they're on this national platform, like that's the reason they're doing it. And I just think we really need to think for a second, in our response to these things, if we're really thinking these players shouldn't do this, so why shouldn't they do it? Because you don't want to see it on the football field. Like, I don't know. What do you think, Miranda? Are you tracking with what I'm saying, or am I crazy? You can say it.
You're crazy.
I'm crazy. Oh, no.
No, I agree. I think it's definitely, like we read somewhere, it's like, what's more American than protesting? And, I mean, protesting in football, I mean, that's just so American.
That's about as protesting, football, chicken wings, and beer. If
they were holding chicken wings while they were kneeling, it would just be complete.
That would be like the true epitome of America. I don't know if we should be proud of that or not.
Yeah, America definitely has, we have lots of issues, but I think that freedom is something that so many people don't have, and it's just, we should never take that for granted, because we have the freedom to, if you're an NFL player, to say, I'm going to kneel and I'm going to do this as an act of solidarity with my fellow teammates and with my country, and I think that is that's definitely something that we need to appreciate.
Yeah, and I will say, if you're offended by these things, or if those are the thoughts you're having, you need to take a step back and not be as easily offended. I know that's not necessarily the most positive thing, but I believe that strongly. I think people are just too easily offended, and if you're offended by this, you need to take a step back and maybe think more about think more about things. I'm not saying you're completely wrong, but just don't be so ready to just be like, I can't believe they did that. I saw people say, I lost all respect for the Steelers because they didn't come out. And for me, it's like, come on. It's at the end of the day, we're in America, and if they're going to do that, they're going to do that. As long as what we do isn't infringing upon someone else's rights, we should be allowed to do it. I know that's a big statement, but like, who are they really hurting by kneeling? Are they hurting us fans? Are they like depriving us of some football time or something? I don't know. I don't personally see the harm in them protesting, regardless of whether or not what they're protesting is right or wrong. Like, it doesn't matter. We need to look at it as the issue of they're protesting something that they believe in. It doesn't matter whether you believe that or not. They feel very strongly about it.
Yeah, and I think that's what's very important, is that sometimes we get caught up in the whole, the drama of it, and, did you see what teams kneeled and what teams stood, and, was Brady linking arms?
Yeah, I saw the one thing popped up. It said, Tom Brady linked arms. I'm like, that's great. I love Brady, but why does it matter whether he did it or not? It's just funny. I'm a Patriots fan. Please don't hate me because of that. Grew up in New England, have a reason. I love them. Love the Patriots.
Yes, Jordan is very biased. One of his biggest role models is Bill Belichick and his big baggy sweatshirts.
Yes, and let me say that, I would not really care either way, whether he kneeled or whether he stood. It doesn't make a difference to me. I don't think it should make a difference for really anybody. I know that's kind of what we're talking about. This whole, I know, this is crazy. A lot of people, even if you're listening to this, you may have felt strongly one way or the other. And I'm not, honestly, at the end of the day, I'm not here to tell you whether you're right or wrong. But I am here to tell you there's some points and some things that happen where we need to take a step back and truly analyze how we're reacting to things. Like I said before, I was even getting upset about like how could this be such a big deal? I'm more upset about the media making it a big deal. I get upset that, you know, Trump's tweeting these things and telling them, well, NFL players should be fired if they kneeled. And I think that's crazy. And you're just adding fuel to the fire by telling NFL players they can't do something or that they should be fired for doing something when you're not even involved in the NFL. Is just kind of crazy. But, you know, at the end of the day, which I can't even say that, at the end of the day, we just need to be just more conscious of, you know, what we're thinking and why we're getting upset at those things. I need to take a step back and think about, well, why is that upsetting me? It's upsetting me because I believe so strongly in nonconformity. I believe that if someone wants to use their platform in that way, then more power to them, regardless of whether, like I said before, regardless of whether what they're talking about is right or wrong.
Yeah, and definitely another point to learn from this whole thing, I would say, is that bullying never really gets you anywhere, because the tweets that Trump sent out, you know, other teams weren't a part of it at all until those tweets were sent out. It's just that when you try to push people in that negative, you know, condescending way, it always rubs people the wrong way. And it's like if you read the How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Hey, Trump, if you're out there, why don't you give that book a read? I didn't say that. I used to take back.
I think I see the Secret Service pulling up right now.
They're here to get me.
So I think that's just something to learn too, because it's just not a good way. What's the phrase? Like a drop of honey attracts more bees than...
That sounds about right.
Something.
I think that's a phrase. I'm not sure 100%.
It's definitely a phrase. I definitely said it wrong.
I mean, it worked though. I get it.
Yeah. So it's definitely something to keep in mind, is that people do not respond well to being pushed around. And if you're going to say, you should be fired for this, then people are going to be like, oh, well, I'm going to kneel now.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of how I would think of it. I mean, maybe I'm immature in that way, but if someone tells me not to do something, immediately I'm like, oh, I want to do that. Like, I hate being told what to do, you know? And I think that's how that's another American thing. We want to do what we want to do, you know? I think Miranda's point there is great, you know, and I don't imagine any of our listeners are going to be trying to bully people. I just think it's a good thing to talk about, because it just doesn't. When in history has it ever really worked to be a bully? You know, and to try to tell other people what they should or shouldn't do. I don't know.
Yeah, it's just not a good way to deal with people. It's much better to be understanding and kind. And it's fine to have your opinion and to share your opinion, but... That's what we're doing right now. We're sharing, you know, I'm sure some of our opinions are coming through on here, and that's okay. Like we said at the beginning, there's a very good chance that, you know, we're wrong on a lot of this stuff. And I didn't mean to interrupt you, Miranda, but I just kind of thought about, you know, how this all relates to what we learned in church today. And our pastor was talking about really big issues like predestination, free will, Calvinism, all those things that you kind of put on a shelf as a Christian and say, I'm not going to really touch those because I don't get it. He was talking about those and just saying, you know, at the end of the day, I keep saying at the end of the day, and I'm like rushing it, but that's okay. At the end of the day. You're ready for this day to be over.
No, I love this day. I was saying.
Oh, no, I threw him off.
You threw me off. That's all right. No, I was saying that we don't tackle those issues because they're so complicated and so complex, and we feel like we have to be on one side or the other. It's okay at the end of the day. I keep saying that, man. Sorry, guys.
I had a feeling you were going to say it again.
It's okay.
I'm going to start a drinking game. Every time he says end of the day, I'm going to drink some chocolate milk.
Okay, you would. Anyway, let me finish my thought there. That it's okay not to know. But okay.
At the end of the day.
At the end of the day. It's important that you know that it's okay not to know. That was a weird way of saying that. It's okay to have an open mind and say, hey, my name's Jordan. I see these issues. Yes, they make me upset, but I'm not sure either way what the right thing is. Other than the fact that I'm pretty sure that we should have free will in this country to be able to kneel or to stand. But with the caveat there being, I am not an all-knowing person. You know, I obviously don't know everything. I said at the end of the day, 6-7 times in this episode, and I still can't say it without stuttering.
Yeah, and
Miranda's just laughing at
you.
It's okay.
I think it's interesting, too, because I can understand how people would be upset if they perceived it as disrespecting the country that gives you freedom and disrespecting, just all the things we have that we should be thankful for here. And it just seems like it is kind of a funny thing to protest. But if that's the only place they can really do that as NFL players, that's where it gets kind of confusing, because I can understand how people would be like, that's disrespectful to our country, you should stand. But at the same time, how else are the NFL players going to make a point?
Exactly.
Did that make sense?
Yeah, I think that made perfect sense. I think just because they have a platform doesn't mean they shouldn't use it. And I feel like that's one of the arguments against them doing it. And of course, I don't think any one of them are doing it to disrespect our veterans and our flag. I don't think they have that intention. I think there are people that are taking it that way, and I'm not saying the people that are taking it that way are wrong either. But I can't imagine they're doing it with those intentions to disrespect our veterans. I'm sure just about every one of them appreciates what our nation's heroes did for us, and I think that's so important that we make that clear on this show, that we're in no way against that. We respect. I mean, for me, I wouldn't be one to kneel. I would stand. But what was I saying?
I don't know. That's a good question, though. If you were the owner of an NFL team during this time, what would you lead your team to do?
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, I'm a flight kind of person, so I feel like I'd do what Tomlin
You
did.
do it, Tomlin. We're not going to face the issues.
I would say,
Tomlin talk.
I'd be like, no, we're not playing today, guys. We're out of here.
Guys, we're not playing football today.
I don't want to mess with this.
No, I'm just picturing
we're all injured.
I'm just picturing the bad lip reading where Tomlin's like, ham bone.
Ham bone.
You got like a ham bone.
Guys, I found Fido.
Okay. Disrespect to Tom Brady there. No, he did find Fido that day. Anyway, yeah, so Miranda and I just wanted to get on and talk about that. I think it's not comfortable for either of us to talk about these issues. Neither of us are very political or very well informed. I think, like Miranda said, I don't even do...
We're very open about how we're not very informed.
Yeah, and I think that's okay. I think we still have a leg to stand on with these issues, because there's so much truth to be discussed and truth to try to find with this. And I think I almost said it again. I think if we're coming at all of this with the angle of, I'm not sure, I don't know exactly how it should be, having an open mind, that's something that's always been very near and dear to my heart, is the fact that it's so important to have an open mind with issues. And having an open mind is not saying there is not truth out there. There's absolutely 100% truth about certain things. Having an open mind means not believing that what that truth is 100%. There are certainly things you can be convicted with. There are certainly things that you may believe to your core as being true. There are things I believe to my core as being true. But my open mind state does not make me want to force that belief on anyone else. It doesn't make me think that Miranda needs to believe a certain way. Of course, like as my wife and in a relationship, I would hope we'd be close with issues, and we actually just naturally happen to be very much on the same page with pretty much every major issue, which helps in the household.
It does.
But just not impressing your beliefs on other people, because people ultimately people are going to come to their own beliefs based on their own experiences. I think there's definitely things that we can guide people towards, but it's just like, I'm not going to make someone else a Christian. Like, that's not my job. My job is to just be who I am, and to talk about issues, and to try to be positive, and just to love other people. And it's not my responsibility to say, hey, did you convert to God today? Because you're running out of time here, and pointing to my watch. And, that's not my job. Some people might think that's their job. And, I think that's admirable for really striking out for what you believe in. Wow, I just kind of went on a bunny trail, I think, there.
I think you really ran off the trail.
I really ran off the trail. All I'm saying is that it's important to know. It's important just to have an open mind. Let me just say that. That's what I'm trying to say. Whew. Sorry about that.
Cut out the last 5 minutes and just put in that part.
No, I'm not going to cut that. It's great.
Yeah, no, I agree though. It's important to have your beliefs, but also it's just a fine line, because you want to have your beliefs and you want to have an open mind. You want to not shut other people's ideas down right away. It's a lot to juggle at once, and I think that's why, as humans, we botch it up all the time.
Yeah. Well, I think we can wrap up this episode, guys. Once again, if you want to live your lives like Alejandro Villanueva, the Steelers player who came out on his own, there's just, he was the reason we decided to talk about this stuff and make this episode. Because Miranda was like, who I respect out of all of this? I respect that one guy. Not for what he believes. Very important there. Whether we agree with what he did or not, whether he stood or kneeled, the important thing is he came out and did that when no one else on his team was out there. I can't even imagine what might have been going through his head, other than the fact that, I feel very strongly about this. And he did it.
Yeah. And I think it's definitely an interesting topic to talk about, because there's so many teams and each team responded differently, and it's just a very interesting topic. But I think it was good that we tried to find the positives and what you can learn from these sort of situations.
Yeah, and this podcast is Freedom Cast. It's about leaving normal behind, and that's absolutely what Alejandro did. And that's what we hope to continually share with you guys, and hope that we can help you to do, just to give you that confidence that, it really is okay to step out on your own, even if it's stepping out in faith or stepping out in, I'm really not comfortable with this. I'm going to, for example, I'm going to go to my boss and tell him I'm not going to do this part of this job because I don't feel that it's ethically right. And I think it's just so important to recognize those issues that we're faced with and be willing to take a stand. Because what do you have to lose?
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for listening, guys. We very much appreciate having you spend your time with us. And if you'd like to comment or email us, please do so. You can comment you can comment on my site, jmring.com/podcast. Just go to the individual podcast episode. You can comment on there, or you can leave us a review on iTunes. We'd very much appreciate that. Or even better, if you wanted to subscribe, you could do that as well. Any of those things, we would very much appreciate it.
Stay weird.
Stay weird, friends.